Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq 100 Index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Thursday afternoon, we have Joyce, Managing Director on Nasdaq's Market Intelligence Desk, for an update on technical levels to watch in the Nasdaq 100 as the markets digest the results of election 2020. And Brian, talk about round tripping from last week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We ended last week with the worst weekly decline since March, when the world was coming to an end, so to speak. This week we're up on the NDX 9.5%. So best weekly performance since the lows of the financial crisis in March of 2009. So an incredible rebound after last week's down week, and we're very close now, but going back to all-time highs.
Yeah, Brian, it's crazy. It's almost like 2 or 3 times this year we've had a 10% correction and then recovery within a week of each other. It's really quite remarkable. So with that said, let's pull up the first chart here, take a look at some time frames and levels to watch.
Yeah, and just on that point, we have mentioned this, a number of times over the last couple of months, is that, when you have that large sell-off like we did in March and that phenomenal initial rebound that, went up to, 70% or so in July, and then we went a little bit further after a couple of pullbacks. But when you have big ranges like that, you're going to see, relatively large corrections, along the way. And so, that's just, again, the big range is going to, provide the environment where that can happen. But right now, as you can see, today we're breaking out of this declining trend line, connecting the highs from September and October. And so from here, the key levels I want to look at is the recent high in October, which is 12,204. And then if we can get through there, then I'm looking at the high from back in September up at 12,439. If we go to the weekly period chart, you can see here that the candlestick capped up earlier in the week on Monday, had a dip, a brief pullback, and then it's just been exploding higher. So this is, again, we noted up almost 10% for the week, with highest weekly performance since March of 2009.
Yeah, and speaking of performance, let's pull up a chart on Bitcoin because it's really quite incredible. And I'm looking at my Coinbase account right now, 12.5%. It's up in just 1 week. Today's performance nearly 7%.
Yeah, Bitcoin has been a monster, as we know. And if we zoom out a little bit, we've been looking at at Bitcoin and a lot of things here on multiple time frames. And one thing I would note on Bitcoin, if I can get my proper ticker in there, is that we had run into the 2019 highs last week. We stalled there briefly and had trended sideways. When we look at the weekly period chart, we take out some of that noise. You can see we're just blasting right through those 2009 highs, and so that's very constructive, very bullish. And I would say right now, it's I don't want to call it smooth sailing because it would be a pretty large percentage move away. It would take us about another 27% to get to those 2017 highs, and that's up at 19,300. But that's really what I see as the next major technical level above us. We did that in 2017 in really short fashion. It just took a week or so from this level. So we'll see what happens this time around. But we blew through that those 2019 highs this week. We stalled there just for a couple of days, and so that looks very constructive. On the RSI indicator, we can see down here it's approaching the 77, 78 reading now. So that's extremely overbought. But we did hit 80 back in 2019, and as you can see back in 2017 when we made those initial highs, we spent many periods of time well above this. We hit 87, we hit 90, and 98 again a couple of times in 2017. So overbought can become more overbought. It's not a reason to sell. And over the intermediate to long term, this looks very constructive.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things you remember in 2017 when Bitcoin hit those highs. I was downtown on Stone Street at a bar taking a look at some of the charts. So it's one of those things that you just don't forget. So Brian, thanks so much as always for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks for having me.
You got it. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.